So, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, apparently, Akira Toriyama has stated that the superhero arc is a story right before the final chapter of Z. Now, whether or not this means we are about to move into end of Z territory, I guess is really up for interpretation, because he's not factually wrong when he says that it's right before the end of Z, because it is right before the end of Z. But does that mean it's the final story before the end of Z? I'm not so sure. It could be. And if it is, I think it would be fun to talk about what exactly will likely take place. So there is a trend amongst pretty much every character in Dragon Ball, and that trend is going to likely extend to Oob in his future development after the end of Z. And what is that trend? Well, it's essentially taming your inner beast. This is something that Goku did as a Super Saiyan with his version of Ultra Instinct. Vegeta's done the same with Ultra Ego. Gohan with Gohan Beast. And now Broly is essentially training to control his inner beast. That is a concept, due to the literary themes that Dragon Ball derives its story from, that has repeated in Dragon Ball over and over and over again. And Oob is no exception to this happening again in the story, because how he was portrayed at the end of Z pretty much tells us exactly what is going to happen with his character once we move into end of Z territory. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, Gohan, essentially, thanks to Piccolo, learned to take control of his inner beast and fight as a warrior. He is known for these rage boosts, these huge boosts in power. Well, Oob is no different. We actually see this firsthand at the end of Z. When Goku does manage to anger Oob, he summons his inner beast, which in his case is, of course, Kid Buu, his inner demons. He uses his inner power, his deep, hidden, destructive nature, to his advantage to try and take out Goku. So, Oob, essentially, is a play on the exact same concepts as the Saiyans in terms of having this beast or this demon inside of him that he needs to tame and use efficiently as a martial artist, or in Gohan's case, as a warrior. So when we get into end of Z territory, everything that we've seen in Super up to now should tell you, since it's a reoccurring theme and it's something that they play on over and over and over again, that the goal for Goku and Oob moving forward into their story for post end of Z content is Goku essentially training Oob to be able to use his inner power without losing himself to it. Just like Super Saiyan, just like Gohan, it's going to be the exact same thing over and over again, which was the entire point of Oob being the reincarnation of Kid Buu, narratively, in this sense, because, again, it creates that same dynamic as Goku having this inner great ape that he has to learn to control, whereas in Oob's case, it's the inner Kid Buu. Now, this trend will also likely extend to Pan as well. I think that's part of the reason that they're focusing so much on Pan, is that Pan is going to have a similar issue as she gets older and matures. I think she's going to be more Videl-like. She's going to have more of an attitude, and it's just going to be harder for her to control her inner demons. I mean, look at her family. You got Gohan Beast, who's her father, Videl, Mr. Satan. She is a very demon-themed character herself, so she is likely going to have issues controlling herself in a very similar way to Gohan in the future, once she's put in a situation after she's matured to essentially lose herself to her emotions. I think that Pan is also going to have a very, very similar development to all the characters we've seen in the past. And so when we move into this post-EOZ world, if that happens, this trend that we've seen amongst Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Broly is going to extend to the future characters of the Dragon Ball story as well, and it's already sort of being set up that way. So we know now, thanks to Super, that Oob has a lot of latent power. In fact, he has God power. So the idea is that in order to tap into all that power, Oob has done so, as we've seen again at the end of Z, through essentially tapping into who he used to be as Kid Buu. Now, what I think is going to happen is, I think in order for him to tap into that power, yeah, he's going to have to take advantage of his emotions in that way, but in order to control it properly without it hindering him, as Goku allures to at the end of Z, he's going to have to learn to control himself through it. And so it's essentially a combination of him using his emotions to summon all that God power we saw in Super, and then taking all that power and using it correctly and taming it, in a sense. Because if the power he has is associated with his emotions, his rage, his inner Kid Buu, so to speak, then he'll have to take advantage of that in order to tap into his inner power. He'll have to take advantage of his inner demons, just like Gohan and many other characters, in order to tap into his latent power. But in order to control it properly, he's going to need the guidance of Goku. He's going to have to control and use his emotions correctly. And so that is likely the development for Pan and Oob, and that is likely the territory in terms of storytelling that we are heading into in terms of End of Z when it comes to Oob and Pan. Now, hypothetically, if the story really is close to the End of Z and we're about to get End of Z content, that likely means that Broly, Frieza, all of these characters are going to be there after the End of Z, which means that they're going to have a bigger role in the overall story, because once we get to the End of Z, we are in unknown territory. We have no idea what's going to happen. One of the biggest issues I've heard people communicate in terms of like their opinion on Super is that it takes place before the End of Z, and that we know, of course, at the end of the day, that everything is going to be fine because the story has to lead to that miraculous conclusion at the End of Z. If they do put all that content off until post End of Z, it could have major benefits for the story. But do I think that that is actually what's going to happen? I'm not sure. Like, I'm not really sure about that. So you guys tell me in the comments what you think. Now, another safe bet in terms of like trying to figure out what End of Z, what post End of Z content is going to look like is Dragon Ball Online, because the story was written by Akira Toriyama for Dragon Ball Online, and he has implemented concepts from Dragon Ball Online into Super. Trunks using the energy sword is a direct reference to the energy sword school that Goten and Trunks open up together in Dragon Ball Online. Tien having his own martial arts school is also a direct reference to him being a martial arts master in Dragon Ball Online and having his own school. In fact, there are schools all across Dragon Ball Online. Yamcha has one, Krillin has one. The cast is really treated as old school kung fu masters in Dragon Ball Online. So it's very, very likely this will also be played on if we get to End of Z content. But also, one of the most important things, which I think is relevant, especially with Dragon Ball Super Superhero, is the idea that Gohan will use his studies to essentially create a scenario where all of Earth is capable of flight and using chi, therefore creating a scenario to where the Earth can actually defend itself if it's ever in danger, which will really make Gohan's studies relevant, and it's something that I hope that they do. When we do get to End of Z content, it's something I really hope that they take advantage of. But yeah, Dragon Ball Online is a great source of inspiration. If you're trying to like imagine what post End of Z content would look like, that's what Toriyama was trying to do when he wrote Dragon Ball Online. So if you're interested, check that out. It's definitely a cool rabbit hole to go down. It's very interesting to see what Akira Toriyama came up with, and it can give us an idea of what may be coming in the future, because like I said, he has used Dragon Ball Online content in Dragon Ball Super already. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace. Hey guys, don't forget to check out Dragon Ball Infinity on the TaoofDragonBall.com. It's a story I wrote and produced with the help of Copy Workshop about a young Saiyan boy based on a character from Egyptian mythology who was a monkey god very similar to Sun Wukong from Journey to the West, who was an actual god of destruction. This story actually plays very heavily on Egyptian lore. It also makes references to Journey to the West, due to the fact that the legend of Journey to the West and the story of Babi, the Egyptian baboon god, have a lot in common. So if you're interested, don't forget to check it out on the TaoofDragonBall.com, hosted by Derek Padula. And also don't forget to check out Derek Padula's many articles breaking down the many cool spiritual and scientific aspects of Dragon Ball, as well as its relevance in pop culture and different really cool aspects of Dragon Ball that are really fun to read about. Derek does a great job with his articles, so I would highly recommend you check out this website. And don't forget to check out his Dragon Ball culture books available now. Thanks a lot, and I appreciate the support.